Part 1. The Former Star. My name is Sarah Mitchell. At 40 years old, I've learned to blend into the background, a stark contrast to my former life in the spotlight. These days, I work in telemarketing, where my voice, the one part of my past I couldn't completely hide, still serves me well. My colleagues often comment on my clear diction and soothing tone, never knowing that these qualities once earned me standing ovations rather than just completed sales calls. In our modest apartment, I've created a quiet life for myself and my daughter, Emma. She has her father's features, those striking large eyes and sharp cheekbones that make my heart ache every time I look at her. When she smiles, it's like seeing him again, preserved in time through our daughter's expressions. We live in a peaceful neighborhood, deliberately chosen for its lack of connection to my past life. It's the kind of place where people mind their own business, where a single mother and her daughter can live without drawing unwanted attention. The kind of place where I can pretend I was never anyone else. My husband. People sometimes ask about him, their voices careful and measured as if testing dangerous waters. The truth is both simple and devastating. Cancer took him when Emma was just 5 years old. The diagnosis came too late, and within months, he was gone, leaving me with a grieving child and no time to process my own loss. "Emma, would you like to go out for dinner today?" I called out one evening, trying to push away the memories that had been particularly persistent lately. "Whatever you want," she responded with typical teenage indifference. I grabbed my purse, watching her scroll through her phone. These dinner outings had become my attempt to maintain some semblance of normal mother-daughter bonding, even if they usually ended up highlighting the distance between us. "Ready?" Emma asked, finally looking up from her screen. "Yes, let's go," I replied, reaching for the door. The evening sun painted the sky in muted oranges and pinks as we stepped outside. The moment the door clicked shut behind us, that familiar anxiety crept in, the constant awareness of being seen, of potentially being recognized. "I was thinking about that cafe we went to last time," Emma suggested. "You know, the one with the good meat dishes? It's perfect for dinner." "Oh yes, that's exactly what I was thinking," I agreed. Though, truthfully, I hadn't been thinking about anything except keeping my head down. "Really?" Emma's voice dripped with skepticism. "Whatever you say." As we walked to the car, I reached for the baseball cap I always kept in the console, my shield against the world. Emma's exasperated sigh filled the air. "Mom, seriously? The cap again? It's so embarrassing." "Oh, right. Sorry," I mumbled, reluctantly removing it. But the moment we reached the cafe's parking lot, I quickly put it back on before stepping out. Emma's deeper sigh told me exactly what she thought of this behavior, but she remained silent. Inside the cafe, we followed our usual routine, choosing the most secluded corner table, where I finally felt safe enough to remove the cap. Emma's eyes rolled so hard I worried they might get stuck, but she kept her thoughts to herself, focusing instead on the menu. The meal passed in relative silence, broken only by the occasional comment about the food or Emma's school day. As soon as we finished eating, we headed straight home, falling back into our familiar pattern of quiet coexistence. Emma immediately retreated to the living room, her attention fixed on her phone, while I cleaned up from our outing. I stood in the bathroom later that evening staring at my reflection. "Pull yourself together," I whispered in the mirror. "You have work tomorrow." The words felt hollow, a mantra that had lost its power to convince. When I returned to the living room, I caught the tail end of whatever Emma had been watching on TV. She quickly grabbed the remote and turned it off, a practiced motion that spoke of habit rather than coincidence. "Oh, were you watching something interesting?" I asked, knowing full well she would deny it. "Not really. Nothing worth watching," she muttered, her eyes carefully avoiding mine. I recognized the lie, but appreciated the tension behind it. At her age, there must be countless shows she wanted to watch. Popular dramas, reality shows, all the things that might trigger memories she tried to protect me from. "Well, I should head to bed. Work tomorrow," I said, using my usual excuse to retreat. Don't stay up too late, Emma. Yeah, good night, she replied, still focused on her phone. As I walked to my room, I heard the TV click back on, volume carefully lowered. The sound followed me down the hallway, a reminder of how my past continued to shape our present. Emma was trying to be considerate in her own way, mindful of what she believed was my weak heart, her gentle euphemism for my trauma. Lying in bed that night, sleep eluded me. My mind raced with thoughts of the past, of the life I'd left behind, and of the daughter who tiptoed around the edges of my carefully constructed reality. I wondered, not for the first time, how long we could continue this way, living in the shadow of secrets I thought were better left buried. Part 2. The letter that changed everything. The morning started like any other. I prepared breakfast, saw Emma off to school, and began my usual routine of household chores. The quiet of the empty house was broken only by the soft clink of dishes and the hum of the washing machine. Then I heard it, the distinct sound of something dropping into our mailbox. A small sound that would end up having enormous consequences. Making my way to the front door, I retrieved a single envelope from the mailbox. The moment I saw the return address, my heart seemed to stop. New York. The words theater audition results jumped out at me, followed by accepted in bold letters. Accepted, I whispered, my voice trembling. Emma Mitchell? This is for Emma? My hand shook as I placed the letter on the desk. I tried to focus on my chores, but my mind kept returning to that envelope, to what it meant, to all the implications it carried. The hours until Emma's return from school stretched endlessly. When I finally heard the front door open and Emma's quiet, "I'm home," my heart began racing again. I waited in the living room, the envelope sitting between us like a live wire. Emma entered, looking puzzled at my serious expression. "Emma," I said, gesturing to the envelope, "would you like to explain this?" She approached slowly, her face draining of color as she recognized what it was. The silence stretched between us, heavy with unspoken words. I took a deep breath, trying to soften my tone. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to sound so harsh. I was just surprised." Leading her to sit down, I waited. The ticking of the clock on the wall seemed deafening in the quiet room. Finally, Emma spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "I want to be an actress." The words hit me like a physical blow. "What?" I managed to say. "I've been doing some acting recently," she continued, gaining confidence, "with friends at school. And Mom, it's incredible. When I'm on stage, I feel alive in a way I never have before." And as she spoke, the whole story came tumbling out. She joined the theater club at school, initially just helping with props and costumes. But one day, when another student fell ill, Emma had stepped in to read their lines. That moment had changed everything for her. "When I watch performances online, I get this feeling in my chest," she explained, her eyes shining. "I see someone deliver an amazing performance, and I think, I want to do that too. I want to stand on stage and become someone else, even if just for a little while." Once I had thought that, I couldn't ignore it anymore. "So you auditioned?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "Without telling you," she admitted, looking down at her hands. "I know I should have, but..." I picked up the envelope again, examining its contents more carefully. This wasn't just any audition. It was for a production by one of the most prestigious theater companies in New York. The same company that had given me my start all those years ago. The paper inside listed the play for the final acting test, A Woman's Journey Through Time. My heart clenched. I knew this play intimately. It had been one of my first leading roles. "Mom?" Emma's voice broke through my thoughts. "Please, let me continue with the auditions." For the first time since she'd come home, I truly looked at my daughter. Gone was a little girl who needed protection from my past. In her place sat a young woman, determined and strong. "Emma," I began, choosing my words carefully. If you enter this world, people will talk. They'll recognize my name, and they'll judge you before you even step on stage. You'll be compared to others constantly. Your looks, your voice, your acting ability, and being my daughter. I'm prepared for that, she interrupted, her voice fierce. I've thought about all of it. I want this chance, Mom. I need it. She reached across the table, taking my hands in hers. I flinched slightly at the contact, but she held on, her grip gentle but firm. I couldn't tell you for so long because I knew you were hurting, she continued. But Mom, you were amazing. I've seen the old videos, the reviews. I'm so proud to be your daughter. Taking a deep breath, she looked directly into my eyes. More than anything, I don't want to give up on my dream. Those words resonated through me, stirring memories of my own passionate declarations at her age. The determination in her voice, the fire in her eyes, I recognized it all too well. All right, I heard myself say. If you're going to do this, see it through to the end. Emma's face lit up with joy. Mom, thank you! I promise I will. And just like that, our quiet life began to change. The second round of auditions loomed ahead, an interview where they would assess not just Emma's enthusiasm, but her potential as an actress. In the days that followed, our apartment transformed into a makeshift rehearsal space. Emma would stay late at school practicing, then come home eager to run through potential interview questions with me. Our usual silence was replaced by constant conversation about acting techniques, voice production, and stage presence. The morning of the interview arrived crisp and clear. Emma stood in front of the mirror, adjusting her outfit for the 10th time. You look perfect, I assured her, smoothing a stray hair back into place. Remember, they're not just looking for talent. They want to see your personality, too. Right, she nodded, taking a deep breath. Be myself, but also be professional. Show enthusiasm, but don't seem desperate. Project confidence, but stay humble. I couldn't help but smile at her careful recitation of all the tips we discussed. Just breathe, sweetheart. You've got this. The wait for the results felt eternal. When the envelope finally arrived, Emma couldn't bring herself to open it. Mom, you look first, she pleaded, thrusting the envelope at me. What? No, we should look together, I protested. I can't. My heart's going to explode. Oh, honestly. I took the envelope, holding it where we could both see it. Okay, on 3. Wait. I need to prepare myself. Despite her protest, her eyes remained fixed on the paper as I opened it. For a moment, we both stared at the words, our brains struggling to process what we were seeing. Then it hit us simultaneously. Accepted. We screamed, hugging each other tightly, the paper clutched between us. Emma had made it to the final round, the acting test. The preliminary script arrived shortly after, along with instructions to memorize the lines before the audition date. Emma's eyes lit up as she flipped through the pages. Mom, look! It has all the other characters' lines too, she exclaimed. Then her eyes met mine, a hopeful expression on her face. Would you help me practice? Me? I hesitated, but her pleading look wore down my resistance. All right, but just to help you learn the lines. As we began working together, something unexpected happened. The trauma that had haunted me for so long began to feel less overwhelming. I found myself forgetting to wear my cap when we went out, engaging in conversations more naturally, even enjoying our time together without constantly looking over my shoulder. We lost track of time during our practice sessions, often realizing with a start that hours had passed. Oh no, look at the time, I exclaimed one evening. I haven't even started dinner. Emma laughed, her script still in hand. I didn't notice either, but now that you mention it, I'm starving. We both got too caught up in it, I said, heading to the kitchen. Well, you were really into the acting, Mom, she called after me. I couldn't help but get excited too. Over a simple but satisfying dinner, Emma couldn't stop talking about our practice session. Mom, you're amazing when you act. Your voice completely changes. It's like you become a different person. Stop, I protested, feeling my cheeks warm. Flattery won't get you anywhere. I mean it, she insisted. You're so good. I smiled, shaking my head. That was a long time ago, Emma. Everything's different now. But as I said those words, I realized they didn't hurt as much as they used to. Something was changing in both of us. Part 3. The audition. The day of the final audition arrived sooner than we expected. I had taken the day off work to accompany Emma to New York, watching as she tried to control her trembling hands in the waiting area. You've practiced so much, I reassured her, covering her shaking hands with mine. Just pretend you're at home and give it everything you've got. She nodded, unable to speak. I gently stroked her hair, the way I used to when she was little and scared of thunderstorms. Whatever happens today, it's okay, I told her. Just make sure you have no regrets. Her expression brightened slightly. Yeah. As we entered the building, Emma turned to me one last time. I'm going in. Break a leg, I called after her, watching as she walked toward the audition room with determined steps. The wait felt interminable. I paced the hallway, my own palms sweaty with nervous energy. But my worries proved unnecessary. Emma didn't just pass the audition, she won the lead role in the play. When we received the news, I burst into tears of joy, unable to contain my emotions. Mom, stop crying, Emma laughed, though her own eyes were wet. You're going to make me cry too. But, I couldn't form coherent words through my tears. Our celebration was interrupted by a knock at the door. We were in a small office waiting to discuss Emma's contract, since she was still a minor and needed parental consent. Come in, I called out, wiping my eyes. The door opened and time seemed to freeze. Standing in the doorway was a face I hadn't seen in 20 years. James Wilson, the director who had discovered me at the beginning of my career. Sarah Mitchell? He gasped, looking from me to Emma and back again. Is it really you? Yes, I managed to say. I'm Emma's mother. It's been a while. It certainly has. He looked at his documents again, shaking his head in amazement. To think, that incredible talent everyone's been talking about is your daughter? Now that I look at her properly, she's just like you were at that age. We spent a few minutes catching up before turning to the business at hand. Emma would need to come to New York for rehearsals on weekends, a demanding schedule, but necessary for her development as an actress. As we discussed the details, I watched Emma's face glowing with excitement and determination. Something inside me shifted, like a key turning in a long-rusted lock. Maybe it was time for both of us to step out of the shadows and into the spotlight. Together this time. Part 4. A new beginning. The following weeks brought a whirlwind of changes to our quiet life. Emma's weekends became filled with rehearsals in New York, while I found myself rediscovering parts of myself I had locked away years ago. Your blocking is good, Emma, but try to feel the weight of the moment more, James directed during one rehearsal I attended. This scene is about more than just the words. It's about the years of regret leading up to this confession. I watched from the back of the theater as Emma nodded, her face serious with concentration. She took a deep breath and began the scene again. And this time, her voice carried a deeper resonance, heavy with unspoken emotion. That's it, James exclaimed. Now you're getting to the heart of the character. During their break, Emma rushed over to where I sat. Mom, what did you think? Was it better that time? Much better, I agreed, surprised by how naturally the critique flowed. But watch your shoulders. They tense up when you're trying too hard. Remember, your character doesn't know she's in an emotional scene. For her, it's just another moment that happens to break her heart. Oh, Emma's eyes widened. That makes so much sense. It's like when Dad died, and you kept making my breakfast exactly the same way every morning, even though everything had changed. Her words caught me off guard. We rarely spoke about those days, about how I tried to maintain normalcy while our world crumbled around us. But she was right. That was exactly the kind of moment her character was living through. Yes, I said softly. Sometimes the biggest moments of our lives feel absolutely ordinary until we look back at them later. James approached us, a thoughtful expression on his face.
Sarah, I've been meaning to ask you something. Would you consider helping with the production? Not just as Emma's mother, but as a consultant? Your experience would be invaluable.
Oh, I don't know. I hesitated, old fears rising up. Mom, please? Emma touched my arm. The other actors would love to work with you. I've heard them talking about your performances in old shows. That was a different person, I protested weakly. No, Emma said firmly. That was you. It's still you. You've just been hiding for so long that you've forgotten. Looking at my daughter, I saw not just her determination, but also her courage. While I had been running from my past, she was running toward her future, unafraid of the challenges ahead. All right, I found myself saying, I'll help, but only behind the scenes. James and Emma exchanged knowing looks, but didn't push further. As the weeks passed, I found myself becoming more involved in the production. What started as occasional advice grew into regular coaching sessions. The young actors, initially intimidated by my reputation, soon began seeking me out for guidance. Miss Mitchell, could you help me with this monologue? Sarah, what do you think about this interpretation? Could you show us how you would approach this scene? Each question, each small request, pulled me further out of my shell. I started leaving my baseball cap at home, letting my guard down bit by bit. One evening, after a particularly long rehearsal, Emma and I stopped at our usual cafe for dinner. As we waited for our food, a woman at the next table kept glancing our way. Mom, Emma whispered, I think she recognizes you. The familiar panic started to rise, but before I could reach for my non-existent cap, the woman approached our table. I'm so sorry to interrupt, she said, but I just had to tell you, I saw you perform The Glass Menagerie 20 years ago. Your performance changed my life. It's what made me want to become a theater teacher. Instead of the usual fear, I felt something different. Pride, mixed with a bittersweet joy. Thank you, I replied, my voice steady. That means a lot to me. After she left, Emma reached across the table and squeezed my hand. See? Your art touched people's lives, Mom. Just like you're helping all of us now. That night, as I lay in bed, I thought about how much had changed since that first audition letter arrived. Our quiet, careful life had been transformed into something fuller, richer, and yes, sometimes scarier. But watching Emma bloom on stage, seeing her tackle challenges head on instead of hiding from them as I had done, made me realize that perhaps running away hadn't protected either of us. It had just kept us from truly living. The next morning, I made a decision. When I arrived at the theater, I sought out James. I've been thinking about your offer, I said, before I could lose my nerve. About helping with the production.
Yes,
he prompted, a knowing smile playing at the corners of his mouth. I'd like to do more than consult. I want to be the acting coach for the entire cast, officially. His smile broadened.
I was wondering how long it would take you to come to that conclusion. The position is yours. It always has been.
As I walked back to the rehearsal room, I could hear Emma running lines with another actor. Her voice carried clearly through the door, strong and confident. My daughter wasn't just following my footsteps. She was blazing her own trail. And in doing so, she had helped me find my way back to myself. Opening the door, I stepped into the bright lights of the theater. It was time to stop being the hidden star and start being myself again. Sarah Mitchell, actress, mother, and now teacher. The spotlight didn't seem so frightening anymore, not when I had such good company in its glow. Part 5. The Unexpected Turn. 3 weeks before opening night, disaster struck. I was working with the lead actress, Rebecca Richardson, on a particularly challenging scene when she suddenly clutched her throat. I can't. My voice, she croaked, her face pale with panic. The rehearsal came to an immediate halt. Within an hour, we had our verdict: severe laryngitis. The doctor's orders were absolute: complete vocal rest for at least 2 weeks.
This is impossible.
James paced the length of his office, running his hands through his already disheveled hair.
We can't postpone. We've sold tickets, made commitments, but we can't put on the show without our lead.
I watched from my corner as the production team brainstormed increasingly desperate solutions. Emma sat beside me, her hand clutched tightly in mine. Isn't there anyone who can replace her? The stage manager's voice carried a note of desperation.
That's impossible, James shot back. We have less than an hour until curtain. The understudy is down with the flu, and this role requires someone who knows it inside and out.
Suddenly, James stopped pacing. His eyes met mine across the room, and I felt my heart skip a beat.
Sarah, he said slowly, you've been coaching Rebecca on this role for weeks. You know every line, every movement.
No, I whispered, but my voice lacked conviction. I couldn't possibly. Mom, Emma squeezed my hand. You know this role better than anyone. I've watched you during rehearsals. You still have it. You never lost it. My mind raced with all the reasons this was a terrible idea. I hadn't performed in 15 years. I wasn't prepared. I wasn't young enough anymore. The audience would be disappointed. But then I looked at my daughter's face, so full of faith in me, and something shifted inside my chest. The show must go on, I heard myself say, my voice stronger than I expected. The next 45 minutes passed in a blur. The costume department worked miracles with Rebecca's dress. The makeup team transformed me from coach to star. And Emma never left my side. Mom, she said as I stood in the wings waiting for my cue. Remember what you told me in my audition? Just pretend you're at home and give it everything you've got. I turned to her, tears threatening to spill from my eyes. When did you get so wise? I learned from the best, she smiled, straightening my costume one last time. The orchestra began to play. My heart pounded so hard, I was sure the audience must hear it. But as I stepped onto that stage, something magical happened. The years fell away. The fear dissolved. In its place came something I had almost forgotten. The pure joy of the performance. The first act passed in a whirlwind of emotion and energy. During intermission, I could hear the buzz of excitement from the audience. Did you know Sarah Mitchell was coming back to the stage?
I saw her original performance 20 years ago.
She's even better now. But the real moment of truth came in the second act. There was a scene, a mother confronting her own fears to help her child pursue their dreams. As I delivered those lines, they weren't just words in a script anymore. They were my story, our story. Sometimes, the greatest act of love is letting go of who we think we should be, to become who we truly are. I spoke to the hushed theater. Sometimes, our children lead us back to ourselves. I felt, rather than saw Emma watching from the wings, and in that moment, everything came full circle. I had spent so many years trying to protect her from my past, never realizing that embracing it might be the greatest gift I could give her. The final curtain call was a blur of standing ovations and tear-streaked faces. But the moment I'll never forget came afterward, when Emma rushed into my arms backstage. Mom, you were incredible, she exclaimed, her face glowing with pride. I knew you could do it. James appeared beside us, his eyes suspiciously bright.
Sarah, that was something special. The theater's been buzzing with calls already. They want to know if you'd consider...
No, I interrupted gently. This was a one-time thing, a gift. I hugged Emma closer. I have a different role now, helping the next generation find their light. Later that night, as Emma and I sat in our favorite cafe, rehashing every moment of the show, I realized something profound. All those years I spent hiding, I thought I was protecting us both. But the real protection isn't about hiding from life. It's about facing it together, supporting each other as we chase our dreams. Part 6. Coming full circle. The morning after the performance, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. News of my unexpected return to the stage had spread like wildfire through the theater community. Critics who had seen the show were writing rave reviews, and several theater companies were reaching out with offers. Mom, look at this one, Emma exclaimed, scrolling through her phone at breakfast. Sarah Mitchell's triumphant return to the stage reminds us why she was considered one of the brightest stars of her generation. Her performance last night proved that true talent only grows richer with time. I smiled, buttering my toast with steady hands. The trembling anxiety that had been my constant companion for so many years seemed to have finally subsided. That's very kind of them, but they're probably just being nostalgic. "Stop that," Emma said firmly, putting down her phone. "You were magnificent and you know it. I saw the audience's faces. You moved people, Mom, just like you used to." Just then, my phone buzzed with another call. James again. I had been avoiding his calls since turning down his offer to continue performing last night, but Emma gave me a pointed look. "You should answer it," she said. "At least hear what he has to say." Sighing, I picked up the phone. "Good morning, James."
Sarah, thank goodness. Listen, I know what you said last night about this being a one-time thing, but please, hear me out. This isn't about putting you back on stage, though heaven knows you could if you wanted to. This is about something else entirely.
His words caught me off guard. "What do you mean?"
The board was beyond impressed with how you handled everything last night. Not just the performance, but how you've been mentoring the younger actors, how you stepped up in a crisis. They want to offer you a permanent position as our company's acting coach and artistic consultant.
I sat down heavily, my toast forgotten.
James, Before you say no, think about it. You wouldn't have to perform, unless you wanted to, of course. This would be about sharing your experience, helping shape new talents, like you've been doing with Emma and the others, but on a larger scale.
Emma watched me intently as I listened to James outline the position. When I finally hung up, she couldn't contain herself any longer. "Well, what did he say?" I told her about the offer, watching her face light up with excitement. "Mom, it's perfect. You can help other actors the way you've helped me, and..." She hesitated, then continued. "Maybe it's time to stop running from who you are." Looking at my daughter, so wise beyond her years, I felt a surge of pride and love so strong it brought tears to my eyes. "When did you become the parent in this relationship?" I asked, only half joking. "Around the same time you started becoming yourself again," she replied with a grin. Over the next few days, as Rebecca recovered and prepared to return to her role, I thought deeply about James's offer. I watched Emma in rehearsals, saw how she had blossomed not just as an actress, but as a person. I thought about all the young talents in the company, their eagerness to learn, their passion for the craft. 1 week after my unexpected performance, I called James back. "Yes," I said simply. "I'll do it." His whoop of joy was so loud, I had to hold the phone away from my ear.
"Sarah, you won't regret this. The theater needs you. These young actors need you."
And so began the next chapter of our lives. Emma continued to grow as an actress, her talent deepening with each role. The critics were right. She did have something of me in her performances, but she was entirely her own person on stage, bringing a fresh energy and perspective that was uniquely hers. As for me, I found my true calling in a nurturing new talent. The years of hiding had given me a unique perspective on the fears and insecurities that could hold performers back, and I used that understanding to help my students break through their own barriers. The baseball cap that had been my shield for so long now sat forgotten in a drawer. Instead of hiding from my past, I drew upon it to enrich the present. When my students struggled with a scene or lost confidence in themselves, I could share not just technical advice, but real understanding of their challenges. One evening, about a year after that fateful performance, Emma and I sat in our usual corner of the cafe. But this time, there was no tension, no need to hide. Instead, we were celebrating. She had just landed her first leading role in a major production. "I couldn't have done it without you, Mom," she said, raising her coffee cup in a toast. "Oh, I think you could have," I replied, clinking my cup against hers. "But I'm so glad I got to be a part of it." As we sat there sharing a piece of cake and discussing her upcoming role, I thought about how far we'd both come. The path I had feared would harm her had instead led us both to exactly where we needed to be. My attempts to shield her from my past had nearly prevented us both from finding our future. A young woman approached our table, clutching a playbill. "Excuse me," she said nervously, "but aren't you Emma Mitchell?" I saw you in last month's showcase. You were amazing. And, oh my goodness, you're Sarah Mitchell. I'm in the youth theater program and I've learned so much from your workshops. Emma beamed at her. Would you like to join us? Mom was just about to tell me about her ideas for the summer intensive program. As the young actress pulled up a chair, her face glowing with excitement, I looked around the cafe. No one was staring. No one was judging. We were just 3 theater people sharing our love of the craft. The hidden star had finally found her true light. Not in the spotlight of center stage, but in the joy of helping others shine. And somehow, that light was brighter than any I had known before.